right, when blue state governors justify their continuing stay-at-home orders, even with COVID deaths in their states relatively low, they invariably regurgitate the same justification.
We're going to do the right thing, not judged by politics, not judged by protest, but by science.
Not to be a broken record, but we're looking at data.
We have to make the best informed decisions based on data and science with the information we have.
Well, that sounds good, but are they actually listening to the science? And is the science even settled? Well, last month, before governors began locking down their states, prominent Stanford epidemiologist John Ioannidis made a prescient observation. He said, in the absence of data, prepare for the worst reasoning leads to extreme measures of social distancing and lockdowns. Unfortunately, we don't know if these measures work. Well, for raising this inconvenient truth or even questioning the orthodoxy, the good professor became an instant pariah in the medical establishment circles. Now, others just ignored him, hoping he'd go away. But new data seems to support skepticism of the effectiveness of social distancing. Now, wouldn't you know that our dear friends over at Facebook actually created their own database that measures and tracks social distancing in every U.S. state? They use two different metrics, and they're examined. The first is called relative mobility change, which is how often someone travels outside his or her area, home area. The second is the stay put percentage, or the percentage of people who stayed in their homes for the day. Now, if you look closely, I don't know if you can on the graphic on TV, but we see that the states with the largest drops in, quote, relative mobility and the largest increases in their stay put percentage are also the states with the most confirmed COVID cases and deaths. Now, New Yorkers and New Jerseyans were understandably terrified about this virus and took the stay-at-home orders quite seriously. But nevertheless, the virus continued to spread. Would it have been worse without the social distancing? Maybe. Do we know that for certain? No. Although the Facebook mapping isn't dispositive, it merely confirms, or reconfirms, I should say, what we need to ask and the questions we need answered about the true efficacy of these social mitigation measures. Now, remember, experts don't like to admit they're wrong, do they? After all, they're supposed to be smarter than the rest of us on all this stuff. Well, then there's the other new article of COVID faith, masks. Now, like most Americans, weeks ago, I began wearing a mask while grocery shopping. And I've talked about this before, but I have been a notorious germaphobe for decades. And it's so bad that my fellow airline passengers, they used to look at me really weirdly when I carried out my ritual disinfecting, regimen that I do with the sprays and wiping down. Well, now everybody's a germaphobe, right? Well, and in March, I thought if masks are what it takes to get Americans back to business sooner, and I assume they'd be temporary, then fine, what's the big deal? But then I started to see people fiddling with their masks, touching their faces, readjusting the mask, even shaming others for not wearing masks when you're outdoors and exercising, like running past someone 10 feet away. You're not wearing a mask. Well, I started to ask questions. So do these masks, a lot of them are homemade, really slow the spread of COVID? It seems like 5 minutes ago we were told they weren't necessary at all, and now they're as commonplace as sweatpants. Numerous airlines are, as of today, requiring them of both crew and passengers. And they're even becoming, well, masks are becoming kind of fashion accessories. But since we're supposed to be guided by actual facts, what does the science actually say about masks? I'm not talking about the N95 masks, which work pretty well, and they're, in the clinical, in the hospital setting, but I'm talking about the homemade ones. They're kind of fun to make. We've made some of them here. Well, Mei Chu, a clinical professor of epidemiology at the Colorado School of Public Health, says the homemade cotton masks only stop about 2% of the airflow coming in. 2%. And those surgical blue masks that you see all around and people throw them away, they're in the gutters now, they're like an ecological hazard. While they're good in the, again, medical setting, operating room, in and out of medical procedures, they aren't very effective out in public, Chu told Live Science. She said, these masks don't seal against the face. About 70% of the outside air moves through the mask, and about 30% travels around the sides. In other words, the masks don't catch the droplets. Now, if experts advising our government officials want the rest of us to take them seriously, then their recommendations have to be reasonable and well-founded, and it would be nice if they were occasionally consistent. If they're not, no one's going to listen. And if they're not held accountable for being wrong, then I don't know where that leaves us. I'm telling you, be prepared, though, as all this plays out, for more petty power grabs. And I'm talking about of the sort we've seen from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Today, anti-shutdown protesters converged on the state capitol there. Presumably, state reps listened, and they adjourned, the Republicans, without extending the state of emergency in Michigan. We'll see what Governor Whitmer does now. Apparently, she's just yawning. Americans, though, are smart, and now they're in self-preservation mode, and they're beginning to ask more questions.